Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Matthew Dickerson. Tech Talk. Sit back and relax. It's time to talk technology.
It is Tech Talk time. Matt Dickerson, good morning.
Good morning. How are you going this morning, Rod?
Very good. We could all see this happening, and I can't believe Toyota has let it happen.
Well, I'm not convinced, Rod, that we could all see it happening. Some of us, you and I, people that could see the vision, see the future, could see it happening, but there's lots of people out there that might not even believe that it's still happening, even when the data is suggesting it's happening. The Toyota Camry, 28 years, it's been the best-selling sedan in this country until 2022. And to make it worse, Rod, it hasn't been overtaken by another traditional car manufacturer, by a Mazda or even a Hyundai or a Kia. It's been overtaken by the Tesla Model 3. It's now officially Australia's best-selling sedan. Quite incredible. The top 10 sedan sales came out just recently for 2022. Tesla Model 3 sold 10,877. The Camry, 9,538. Now, that's a big drop for the Camry. It's down from 13,081 in 2021. So a fairly big drop there for the Camry. In the top 10, not only is number one an EV, the Tesla Model 3, but number 6, the Polestar 2 is number 6 on the list of sedans there. The Polestar is the EV variant from Volvo. So there's 2 different manufacturers, 2 different EV cars in the top 10. The rest are filled by cars you expect to see there: Toyota, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Mazda, Skoda, Lexus, so a range of traditional brands and traditional internal combustion engine vehicles in there. So it's the beginning, Rod, finally. It's still not dramatic in terms of the uptake in Australia. We sold in Australia last year 33,410 EVs across the nation. So when you think about the fact that Tesla Model 3 sold 10,877 of those, they've got a fairly good market share. Add in the Tesla Model Y, which sold 8,717, then you've got about 2/3 of the sales of EVs taken up by one brand. So not bad in terms of market share. So of the approximate million cars or so we sell each year, 33,000 is not significant yet, but it's increasing, Rod. And we see countries around the world where it's increased quite dramatically, that it's way ahead. There's some countries in the world that are at 92% of new car sales. So we've got a way to go, but we're getting there, Rod. It's happening.
And is Toyota doing anything to try and rein this in?
Well, they are arguing with the US government about cutting back on subsidies for electric vehicle manufacturers. So that's one thing they're doing, basically trying to say, keep selling internal combustion engine vehicles. They've started to put some ads out there to say, we think hydrogen's the future, but I think that's really just to cover up the fact that they've missed the boat on EVs. So they're a long way behind some of the traditional manufacturers, a long way behind some of the new entrants to the market like the Teslas of the world. So I think they've been caught a little bit. Their hybrid technology they introduced with the Prius originally was way ahead of the game, but I think they've tended to sit on their hands a little bit since then.
All right. Now, I read a bit about this one yesterday. Airbus trying auto landings.
Yeah, would you feel comfortable on a plane with no pilots? Well, they're not talking about no pilots yet, but they're certainly talking about reducing the number of people in the cockpit. Now, you probably can remember, Rod, there used to be 3 people in the cockpit. In fact, I think in the very early days of aviation, there were 4 people in the cockpit, but even on some of the first planes that I was on, there used to be 3 people. There would be an engineer who would sit in the cockpit, and you see those pictures of cockpits of old 747s, and there's an engineer sitting behind the 2 cockpits facing kind of at right angles to the direction of the plane, and he's got a circuit board and various switches in front of him. And so there was a fairly big drama when airlines started announcing going from 3 people in the cockpit down to 2 people because some of the automation in the cockpit didn't require an engineer to be sitting in the cockpit any longer. We seem to have gone through that okay. We're now getting to the point where Airbus is out there flying planes that have got more autonomous or more autonomy, more ability to fly for themselves, including landing and taking off potentially, getting to the stage where maybe they'll be able to run with one pilot. Now, obviously, the focus here is reduce costs. 2 pilots obviously cost money. Having one pilot in there and having technology take over can obviously reduce some of those costs. Some of the pilot associations around the world aren't particularly happy about it. They think that the plane is safer with 2 pilots on there, and they've probably got a good point there. But what Airbus is working on is using a range of cameras as well as the various technology they've got, the various sensors they've already got in the planes, to be able to basically pick out various landmarks and use that in conjunction with the technology that the planes have already got to try and get to the stage where planes are flying from point to point by themselves. If there's an incapacitation of the single pilot you've got there, the plane should be able to land itself without necessarily needing an airport to have any additional technology. So the plane will be able to see, in inverted commas, the terrain around it and actually land and take off if need be.
I've got one word. No. And I want a passengers association to form to voice the concern. No, we need a body up there, a couple of bodies up there, to make sure that we get down.
And it'd be an interesting process, Rod, if it got to the stage where the regulators were happy with this, and they're talking about maybe getting to the stage of doing away with a co-pilot by the year 2030. It'd be interesting if an airline was out there and said, fly with us, we've got 2 pilots in the cockpit, and our prices are 20% dearer. I actually wonder how the market would react. Would you pay a certain amount more to have the 2 pilots on there? You may well do, but would the market in general pay more to have 2 pilots sitting up there? Interesting point.
To that one, I say yes. I would pay more. Now, what's the AI doctor up to?
Well, we do joke about it, don't we? Someone has a lump on their leg or has a cough or whatever it might be, and the first question people say is, what did Dr. Google say? Obviously, people jump online, type in their ailment, and they're waiting for the answer to come back from Google. Unfortunately, that answer includes every conspiracy theory, every crackpot that's out there, every different opinion about what the problem might be. It's not necessarily someone with some sort of medical expertise that might be giving some information. They're doing more testing now with AI where you would actually go to a site that was an authorised site that had AI driving it. You'd either speak to the site or type in your ailment, and then it would use a whole range of medical information, medical books, medical exams, as well as all sorts of commonly searched medical questions that had been gained via Google searches over the years to get to the point where AI would give you an initial diagnosis of what the problem might be. Now, what they actually tried as an interesting little test was they actually gave this AI model some medical exams, written in the same way the medical exam was written, and actually going through that process of doing a test. Now, they were scoring, the AI model was scoring about 67, 68% on some of the benchmark tests. And you might think, well, that doesn't sound great. You'd rather something that scored 100% in an exam rather than 68%. But keep in mind that doctors don't score 100% in the exams that they undertake to get through their medical degree. So it's probably unrealistic to expect it to get 100%, but it's getting a reasonable level. I think where you'd really see this sort of thing used is maybe some initial diagnosis, maybe some first step to actually get to the point of, do you need to go and see a doctor urgently? Do you need to go and see a doctor maybe in the next few months just to have that problem checked out there? I think it'd be a good way of an initial screening, but maybe not to give you the final answer. You don't know that you want to necessarily send someone to the surgical table based on the advice that I got from some AI.
We're talking tech with Matthew Dickerson, and where am I going to go here? Yeah, high-tech wood.
It doesn't sound like something you would associate with high tech, do you? It doesn't. Something with wood. But wood, I think, might be one of those building products that we'll see come back a little bit. Wood was obviously used in a lot of buildings many years ago, and we found all sorts of other materials. But as we have to start to be more conscious of our environment, of the environment we live in, of things that are impacting our environment, wood might be making more of a comeback. Now, wood's been proven to be a great product for building over the years, but it doesn't particularly insulate your home that well when you use wood to build. So you're then using other things, whether it be Bradford bat type insulation or polystyrene, but you're using other things to insulate. Well, some researchers at the University of Maryland have found that if they treat wood with a sodium hydroxide compound and basically heat it up and then cool it down in a certain way, you actually get these tiny air cavities that are ending up in the wood, not reducing the strength by any level, but increasing the actual insulation properties. So they're calling this insul wood. It's a typical sort of way, throw a couple of words together to come up with a new trendy word. But basically, insul wood, they're saying, will be used for building products, used for sheeting the outside of houses, for example, generally used in building processes, good with insulation, a good strong building product, and at the end of the life of that product, it obviously can break down. It's a natural compound that can break down, a natural product that can break down, but also you can keep producing that by obviously having plantation forests where you're building or growing that sort of timber that you can actually use for that process. So it's interesting. We think of wood as a very natural product. We don't think of technology associated with wood, but wood that actually starts to be treated in a certain way can have different properties.
I like the sound of that one. Now, which tech products lose the most value?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, isn't it? We don't really buy tech products typically as an investment. But one particular company has gone and done a whole range of research to see over 1 year time frame, what are the products that keep their value the best and what are the products that lose their value the worst or lose most value over a year. So I'll give you some of the winners and losers. In the smartphone products, the Apple iPhone 13 Pro Max depreciated by 45%. So it's a fair amount of depreciation, but that was one of the better products. In terms of the other end of the spectrum, the biggest loser, Google's Pixel XL, depreciated by 98.6% of its value over a year. So you can imagine that's basically worthless in a year's time. So we think 45% doesn't sound great, then losing most of its value doesn't sound great either. In the tablet spectrum, the Apple iPad Pro 11 depreciated by 57%. That was one of the best. In the biggest losers in the tablet range, the Samsung Tab A depreciated by 95%, and the Samsung Galaxy Tab A7 depreciated by 87%. Smartwatches, they were pretty big losers. The better of them at the better spectrum was the Apple Watch Series 7, depreciated by 71% in a year, and the Samsung Watch 3 depreciated by 96% in a year. The best thing to buy if you want to keep some value in something are gaming consoles. Sony PlayStation 5 only depreciated by 25% in a year. And at the other end of the spectrum, the Nintendo Switch Lite depreciated by 65% and the Xbox Series S depreciated by 53%. So they were at the worst end of the spectrum. So in general, Apple products did quite well. Gaming consoles did quite well, but basically if you're going to buy technology and expect it to retain some of its value, then prepare to be disappointed.
And what would I do with a gaming console?
Keep it for a while, then sell it again, I think.
Yeah, keep it in its box and maybe it'll be worth a lot more money.
That's right. And you're right there. If you did keep these in pristine condition, these were resale values for products that were being used. But if you kept buying in a box in its perfect condition, and there was that incident 6 months or so